Welcome back to the deep dive. This is the place where we take that stack of sources you send us, all the articles, the research papers, your notes, and we dig in. We find the essential insights, the things you might have missed.
Yeah, we're really looking for that connective tissue. Our mission is always about synthesizing the data, finding the hidden patterns, and connecting ideas that, on the surface seem to have absolutely nothing to do with each other.
It's about finding the software, not just looking at the user interface.
Exactly.
And today, honestly, we have the most bizarre premise we have ever tackled on one of these deep dives. This is really for you if you love these weird cross-cultural puzzles.
It's a good one.
So here's the fundamental question. What on earth is the connection between the Elbedritsch, which is this mysterious, kind of absurd, bird-like creature from German folklore?
From the Palatine region specifically.
Right. What links that with, of all things, the American Groundhog Day ritual in Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania?
It sounds like a joke, doesn't it?
Yeah.
One is this obscure forest phantom that most people have never heard of, and the other is this global media spectacle. You've got a groundhog in a top hat predicting the weather on TV.
They couldn't seem more different. But the sources we've got, especially this really detailed psychologic mimetic analysis from Dr. Michael Werner, published in early 2026, it argues something pretty radical.
It does. It suggests that these two traditions are not just, vaguely similar. They are structurally identical.
Identical. That's a strong word.
It is. The argument is that they're separated by an ocean, by different cultures, by centuries, but they are running on the exact same psychological software. They're both designed to solve the exact same human problem: how to manage deep existential fear.
Okay, so this is much bigger than just folklore. We're talking about a kind of universal formula for how the human mind copes with uncertainty.
That's the mission.
So our mission today is to unpack the 3 psychological theories that Dr. Werner uses to map out this formula. We're talking about compensatory control theory, or CCT.
Then the hyperactive agency detection device, which is HADD.
And finally, benign violation theory, BVT. If this model holds up, it's not just a new way to look at myths. It's a huge paradigm shift in understanding why we create them in the first place.
A structural formula for coping with fear itself.
Okay, let's unpack this. To do that, we have to start with the operating system. Before we get to the creatures, we need to understand the 3 core mechanisms that drive all of this.
Right. We have to start at the foundation.
And that foundation is our relentless, very human need for structure. The base layer of all this is what the sources call compensatory control theory, CCT.
ZCT. It's really the deep architecture of how our minds work. The theory states that we have this fundamental, innate, and totally non-negotiable need for structure, for predictability, and above all, for control.
Control over our environment, over our own lives. It feels like a core survival instinct.
It absolutely is. I mean, think about it. If I can predict the seasons, I can plant crops. If I can understand how a predator behaves, I can avoid it. Control means safety. It's that simple.
So what happens when we lose that control? When the world just refuses to be predictable?
That's the crisis.
Yeah.
The sources use this great German term, Kontrollverlust, the subjective loss of control. And when that happens, it generates this profound, often debilitating anxiety. It destabilizes our entire psychological system. We simply cannot tolerate chaos for very long.
So if I'm facing something chaotic, like a volatile economy or a strange illness I can't explain, my mind has to do something to get that feeling of order back.
It has to. It compensates. And that's the compensatory part of the theory. When our internal or direct control is gone, we immediately, almost automatically, start seeking external structures or systems to impose order for us.
So we're looking for something, anything to grab onto.
Exactly. And here's the really critical point from the sources. This compensation mechanism, its main job is to restore the feeling of agency, the feeling of order. It doesn't actually matter if it restores objective, factual control.
Wow. Okay. So the feeling is more important than the reality.
In that moment of anxiety, yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. This explains so much, beyond just folklore. It's why people who feel powerless might gravitate toward very rigid ideologies or conspiracy theories.
Because they provide a clear, simple structure. They offer an explanation and order for what feels like random, frightening chaos.
Precisely. They stabilize your interior world. And in a cultural context, this compensation often takes the form of what the theory calls external agentification.
Meaning we create agents. We create who's.
Yes. If we can't control the storm or the plague or the crop failure, we invent or seek out stabilizing forces that can. We look for gods, oracles, spirits, myths. These cultural systems are incredibly functional, not because they change the weather, but because they stabilize our minds by providing clear answers and predictable rituals.
The ritual itself restores the feeling of order.
The ritual restores the order. So CCT explains the why, the deep psychological drive to escape chaos.
Okay, but it doesn't explain why that order so often takes the form of a person, or creature, or a god. That's the next piece of the software, right? The Hyperactive Agency Detection Device, HADD.
HADD, yes. I find this part fascinating. It's a piece of evolutionary psychology, and it's basically a universal, hardwired cognitive bias. We are programmed to over-attribute intentionality, to see a who in ambiguous situations.
We're pattern seekers. We see faces in the clouds, we hear voices in the wind. We're primed to find an agent behind the curtain, even when there isn't one.
And we're primed that way for a very good reason. It's all about survival economics. It's about avoiding high-cost errors.
What do you mean by that?
Okay, so imagine you're an early human, you're out foraging, and you hear a rustle in the bushes. A branch snaps. You have two ways to interpret that.
Okay.
Option one, you could assume it's just the wind, a random physical event. If you're right, fine. But if you're wrong, and it's actually a lion, that's a very high-cost error. You're dead.
Right. Game over.
Option two, you can assume it's an agent with intent, a predator. You assume the worst. Now, if you're wrong, and it's just the wind, what did you lose? A little adrenaline, a few seconds of being scared. It's a very low-cost error.
So evolution would favor the brain that makes the low-cost error every time, the one that's a little paranoid.
The one that's hyperactive in its agency detection. Exactly. We are wired to assume it's a lion, even if it's the wind, 99 times out of 100. Because that one time saves our life. We are fundamentally biased against accepting randomness as an explanation for things that scare us.
So HADD is the mechanism that takes that free-floating anxiety from CCT and gives it a face. It turns the what of chaos into a who.
Perfectly put, it transforms the impersonal randomness of a long winter or the scary weirdness of a neurological glitch into a personified force, an agent that you can now fear or negotiate with, or as we're about to see, even study and laugh at.
Okay, which brings us to the final piece of the puzzle, the most surprising one, I think, the role of humor. This is the benign violation theory, or BVT. This is where the fear actually gets managed.
Yeah, we really need to spend some time here because this is where Dr. Werner's analysis really shines. The sources make a critical argument. Humor isn't just a pleasant side effect of feeling better. It's a vital, functional mechanism. It's a regulator of threat feelings. It is a psychological technology. It's how we create the necessary distance from the very threats that CCT and HADD have identified and personified.
I think most people, myself included, think of laughter as something that happens after the tension is gone. You know, the scary movie ends, the lights come up, and you laugh with relief. But BBT seems to be saying something different. The tension has to still be there somehow.
That's the core paradox, and it's what makes the theory so powerful. For true, deep, relieving humor to happen, a situation has to meet two contradictory conditions at the exact same time.
Okay, what are they?
First, there must be a violation. The situation has to break your expectations. It has to violate a social norm, a physical law, or your sense of safety. The threat, or at least the idea of the threat, has to be present in the narrative.
It has to feel a little bit wrong or dangerous or out of place?
Yes, but at the same time, the second condition has to be met. The situation must be benign. You have to perceive it as harmless, or it has to be contained in a way that you interpret as safe in that moment.
So my brain is simultaneously processing two conflicting signals. This is a threat, and this is safe. That sounds like it would short-circuit your brain.
It's a controlled short circuit.
Yeah.
And the laughter, that physical response, is the cognitive tension discharge. It's the sound of your brain successfully holding those two opposite ideas, danger and safety at the same time, and managing the conflict.
So it's not relief from the tension, it's the processing of the tension.
Exactly. What's fascinating here is humor is a highly developed mechanism for regulating deeply felt threat. Think about dark humor among, say, surgeons or soldiers. It's not because they're callous. It's a necessary tool that allows them to process the violation, the horror, the stress, the fear, without being overwhelmed by the anxiety that would normally come with it.
Okay, I think I see the whole architecture now. CCT is the pressure cooker of anxiety from losing control. HAGD gives the steam a name and a face. And BVT is the pressure release valve that lets the whole group manage it without exploding.
That's a perfect analogy. That is the three-step formula.
All right, let's put this formula to the test. We're moving to our first case study, the Elbedritsch. And this is a great test case because it applies this CCT-HADD-BVT model to a fear that is entirely internal. It's a neurophysiological event.
Right. The sources are quite clear on this. The origin of the Elbedritsch myth, like so many similar European night demons, isn't just a spooky story. It's rooted in a real, terrifying, and actually quite common human experience. Sleep paralysis.
I've read about this, and it sounds like one of the purest forms of terror you can imagine. Your mind is completely awake and aware. You can see your bedroom, you can hear sounds, you know where you are, but your body is completely paralyzed. You can't move, you can't scream.
You're trapped inside your own head. The neurological switch that keeps our bodies still while we dream, it malfunctions. You wake up mentally before your body does.
This is the ultimate loss of control. It's the textbook definition of that controlverlust you were talking about. Your own body is defying your conscious will.
It's pure powerlessness, Ohnmacht,
Yeah.
and it generates this acute primal fear. But it gets worse.
It gets worse. How?
Because the experience is almost always accompanied by two other things. A distinct physical sensation of crushing pressure on the chest, like you're being suffocated.
Oh, wow.
And vivid, terrifying hallucinations.
Yeah.
People consistently report feeling or even seeing a malevolent presence in the room with them. A figure, a shadow, a demon sitting right on their chest.
Okay, so now I see exactly where HADD comes in. Your brain is in this state of absolute terror and paralysis, and it is desperately searching for a cause.
Desperately. And there is no way in that moment that your agency-seeking brain is going to accept the real explanation, which is, oh, this is just a random neurological glitch in my harem cycle. No, it needs a who. This intense crushing pressure must be caused by an actor.
So the brain projects all that internal chaos, all that physical pressure and mental panic onto an external agent, the night pressure demon.
Exactly. Historically, in that part of the world, this was known as the Elbedritsche or the Mar, a truly malevolent, terrifying creature.
And over time, through local storytelling and cultural iteration in the German Palatinate, that general night demon gets a specific local name and form. It becomes the Elbedritsch.
It's a perfect example of cultural compensation. You take this unmanageable, terrifying internal body crisis and you externalize it. You give it a name, a shape. You turn it into a specific external monster. Now, it's not a malfunction inside you anymore. It's a creature that lives out there in the woods.
Yeah.
Symbolic control has been restored.
But wait, the Elbedritsche sounds genuinely horrifying, a serious demon. But the Elbedritsch, at least in its modern form, is, well, it's kind of a joke, right? It's a source of mockery. How does a culture make that leap? How do you turn a terrifying demon into a punchline?
That is the crucial final step.
Yeah.
That transformation is the essential work of the benign violation theory. The culture performs this amazing collective strategic reframing. It takes this terrifying, intensely private, individual experience of sleep paralysis and it makes it social. It launders the fear through paradoxical humor.
And it does that through a ritual, the famous Elbedritsch hunt, which, if you're an outsider, sounds completely bonkers.
It is. It's supposed to be bonkers. That's the whole point. The ritual is a collective, socially sanctioned prank. You take a newcomer, a tourist, someone not in on the joke.
The victim.
The victim, yes. And you send them out into the woods at night with a sack and a lantern. And you give them these very serious, very specific instructions on how to catch this elusive, bird-like creature.
And the veterans, the locals, they go off and hide somewhere and just watch.
They watch and they wait. And eventually, the newcomer is left alone in the dark, holding a sack, feeling more and more ridiculous, until they finally realize they're the butt of the joke. The hunt is a failure by design.
Here's where it gets really interesting. So what's happening here, psychologically, is that the original terror, the fear of the night demon, of being paralyzed in the dark, it's not being ignored or suppressed.
No, not at all.
It's being strategically restaged. It's reenacted, but as social comedy. The collective laughter when the joke is revealed, that laughter takes the latent individual terror of that dark, oppressive nighttime presence, and it completely transforms it.
It turns it into the punchline of a shared cultural experience. The violation, the memory of that fear is still present, but the context of the prank makes it utterly benign. The threat is neutralized by making it ridiculous.
But the sources say it goes even further than just a prank. The culture builds another layer of control on top of it. They invent this pseudoscience called trickology.
Yes. This is that CCT mechanism again, but in a passive form. They create a whole field of study around the Elbedritsch. There are books, field guides, detailed classifications of different regional subspecies. rules about their behavior, their diet.
It's a parody of science.
It is, but it serves a deeply serious psychological function. By creating this formal, scientific-sounding structure, even though everyone knows it's nonsense, the culture eliminates the ambiguity of the original fear. The unknown is categorized.
So the former night demon, the source of this unexplainable internal terror, is reduced to a specimen. It's an object of study.
Precisely. This formal classification system stabilizes the whole cultural explanation. By imposing this veneer of science with its clear concepts and expert roles, the culture massively reduces the anxiety that comes from the existential uncertainty of the original experience. The Elbedritsch is no longer an invisible, unknowable source of dread. It's a known, defined, albeit uncatchable entity.
Okay, so the Elbedritsch case gives us a perfect complete circuit. You start with the inner crisis, the CCT loss of control from sleep paralysis.
Then HADD kicks in and agentifies that crisis into the demon, the Elbedritsch.
And finally, BVT transforms that terrifying agent into something manageable through the social humor of the hunt and the structural control of trickology.
A complete psychological process.
This model seems really robust. So now, let's do what Dr. Werner does in the analysis and jump across the Atlantic. Let's apply the exact same three-part formula to a completely different kind of anxiety. Not an internal neurological fear, but an external ecological one. We're going to Groundhog Day. The big question is, does the formula still hold up?
It's the perfect stress test for the theory. Because for the Pennsylvania German settlers who brought this tradition over and adapted it, the existential threat was not a glitch in the brain. It was the brutal, unpredictable reality of the natural world.
A long, cold winter wasn't just an inconvenience for them. For an agrarian community, it meant real danger.
Oh, absolutely. It meant crop failure. It meant your livestock might not have enough fodder to survive until spring. It meant food scarcity for your family. It was a very real, very tangible threat to the entire community's survival.
So that's our CCT context. The unpredictability of the climate, specifically how long winter is going to drag on, represents a massive fundamental loss of control over the environmental conditions that are essential for life. The anxiety is existential.
And as soon as that CCT switch is flipped by those high stakes, what happens next?
HADD has to kick in.
HAD has to kick in. The intense, community-wide need for predictability, for a clear answer to the question, when will this end, has to be projected onto an agent. It needs a spokesperson.
They needed a point of contact for the chaos of the weather, an Ansprech partner, as the sources say.
Exactly. And the agent they settled on was the Groundhog, the groundhog, a creature that naturally emerges from its burrow right in that critical transition period in early February.
So they take this natural event and they grant it a supernatural ability.
A non-causal ability, yes. They granted the power to predict the next 6 weeks of weather based on a simple binary observation. Does it see its shadow or not?
It's biologically absurd, of course, but psychologically it's brilliant. It takes the terrifying, ambiguous, open-ended question, will we have enough food to survive the winter? And it replaces it with a simple, clear, ritualized answer.
Yes or no. 6 more weeks, or an early spring, it funnels all of that vague, paralyzing anxiety into the anticipation of a single defined moment. It satisfies that deep CCT need for agency and predictability.
Okay, so just like the terrifying demon had to become a joke, this potentially fatal threat of a long winter has to be transformed into a manageable social experience. BVT has to do its work.
And that's the absolute genius of the modern Groundhog Day ritual. The existential uncertainty, the potential violation of starvation or scarcity is collectively processed inside a context that is highly formalized, communal, and, let's be honest, deliberately absurd.
The absurdity makes it benign.
It's essential. You look at the ceremony, you've got these men in top hats and formal wear, the inner circle of the Grundsaullotsch number 19. They deliver these formal prognostications, sometimes in Pennsylvania Dutch. They are performing the role of scientific or mystical experts.
They are simulating epistemic authority. It's a performance of knowledge.
And that performance, that whole formalized spectacle, is the psychological equivalent of trickology. It provides the compensatory structure that CCT craves. You take a life-or-death environmental worry, and you stage it as this shared, highly structured game where a rodent makes a pronouncement.
So the seriousness of the threat, the violation, is still there. It's still about the winter. But it's safely contained within this framework of collective, formalized absurdity, which makes it benign.
And the result is what you see on TV every year. The cheering, the collective laughter, the celebration. The community is, quite literally, laughing in the face of their seasonal dread.
They're laughing off the possibility of scarcity.
It's a profound act of psychological group regulation. That uncontrollable, unknowable future is channeled into a collective drama, a shared game. By making it silly, by making it a party, the deep individual fear of what a long winter means is transformed into manageable social content. It creates that necessary emotional distance to cope.
So now we get to the synthesis. This is where the whole thing comes together and validates itself. This is where Dr. Werner makes that big claim, calling the Groundhog Day ritual a structurally homologous external validation case for the Elbedritsch theory.
Right, and that technical phrase is really the core of the whole analysis. Structurally homologous just means it has the same underlying structure. It's built the same way. The Groundhog Day ritual mirrors the exact same three-step psychological architecture, CCT, then HEDD, then BVT, that's used to process the Elbedritsch sphere.
Even though the raw materials, the specific creature, the location, the source of the anxiety are completely different.
Completely different. And that's the central universal finding. The kind of threat doesn't actually matter that much. It's secondary. It can be an internal, neurological fear or an external ecological one. The crucial element is the standardized three-step psychological mechanism that our brains activate whenever we lose control.
It's like the coping system is modular. You can plug any fear into it and it will run the same program.
That's it. And this is the paradigm shift in folklore that the sources are talking about. Dr. Werner's model moved the entire discussion away from asking what the myths are. Is it a bird-like creature? Is it a rodent? To asking what psychological problem they solve for the people who believe in them.
And the problem they consistently solve is restoring that feeling of structure and control, which leads us to what might be the most unsettling conclusion in the entire analysis.
I think so, yes.
The sources show that psychological control is fundamentally more effective and more valuable to us than objective, factual control.
This is the key takeaway. It's a functional paradox. Objectively, the Elbedritsch hunt has a 0% success rate and does not cure sleep paralysis. And the groundhog shadow has, I think, a predictive accuracy that's only slightly better than a coin flip. They are empirically useless.
Right, they're not useless.
Psychologically, they function perfectly. They work because they successfully restore the feeling of agency, the feeling of predictability, and the feeling of social order for the community. And that's the actual goal.
So the brain's priority isn't factual accuracy. It's emotional stability. It's comfort. This leads right to that incredible trade-off the sources mention. A felt certainty is psychologically more valuable than the truth.
Absolutely. Think about the alternative. The honest scientific truth is often we don't know exactly when winter will end, or we don't fully understand this rare neurological event. That answer, while true, leaves the ambiguity and therefore the anxiety very high. It's intolerable.
But the pseudoscientific answer from Psychology, or the formal proclamation from the Groundhog's inner circle, is simple, clear, and structured. It immediately reduces the anxiety.
And we will choose that anxiety reduction almost every time. People will gravitate toward the simple, structured answer that provides clarity, even if it's wrong, over the complex, ambiguous truth. Because the structure itself is what stabilizes the psyche, just as CCT predicts.
That explains the whole machinery of it, the creation of fake experts, of special terminology, of these elaborate rituals. It all serves to build a structure you can lean on.
Its function is what the sources call affective regulative. It regulates emotion. Whether it's epistemically true or not, it's beside the point.
And so, finally, let's bring it back to BVT. Let's look at humor in this context. The conclusion is that humor is not just a nice add-on. It's not decoration. It is the functionally essential, necessary end product of the entire formula.
The whole system collapses without it. Without BVT, you're just left with a terrifying demon or a debilitating fear of winter. The shared laughter during these rituals is the ultimate act of cognitive and social control.
It's what makes the fear socially linkable. I love that term from the sources, anschlussfähig. It allows a community to talk about and process a threat that would otherwise leave people isolated in their own private panic.
You can't build community around silent individual terror, but you can build it around a shared joke. The ritualized humor isn't a distraction from the threat, it's a controlled reenactment of the threat under safe social conditions.
By laughing together, the group creates that emotional distance and safely reframes the danger. They're all sending each other the same message. Yes, this thing is scary, but look at us, we are handling it. Together, we can even laugh about it.
The Groundhog Day ritual and the Elbedritsche hunt are empirical proof of Dr. Werner's central thesis. Humor is not a luxury. It is the end-stage technology of the human brain's response to existential threat.
So what does this all mean? The Elbedritsch doesn't just explain itself. And the groundhog isn't just about the weather. This deep dive has shown us that both of these creatures are just, well, they're interchangeable variables in a single universal psychological program that all of us run.
The German forest phantom explains the American media ritual, and the American ritual validates the theory about the German phantom.
It's a key to understanding this universal human tendency to deal with unbearable chaos by creating clear agents, building these elaborate compensating structures, and in the end, transforming our deepest fears through shared comedy.
We've taken a deep dive into two incredibly unique cultural traditions. One from an internal neurological fear, the other from an external ecological anxiety. And we've had the exact same three pieces of cognitive software running underneath it all: CCT, HADD, and BVT.
We've seen the incredible power of a clear structure over an uncomfortable truth. We've seen that relentless HADD drive to find a who to blame. And we've seen the absolute functional necessity of collective humor in managing our existential dread. These mechanisms are universal. They're independent of language or continent or time.
So if these traditions are really these ancient cultural technologies that our brains designed to manage the loss of control, then you have to ask yourself a final question. What are the Elbedritsche and the Groundhogs of your own time? What are the simplified agents, the new rituals, the collective in-jokes that we create today to give a face to our modern uncontrollable anxieties? I mean, think about something like climate change, or the sheer speed of economic uncertainty, or just the overwhelming, contradictory flood of information you face online every single day.
When we face that modern chaos, what new structures do we build? What answers do we trust over the uncomfortable, ambiguous truth, simply because they make us feel more in control?
Think about the online gurus, the political commentators, the systems that offer a very simple who to blame for incredibly complex problems. That's HADD at work. Think about the formalized pseudoscientific language they use to sound authoritative. That's your Triskology.
And think about the memes, the collective jokes that spread like wildfire that allow us to talk about something truly terrifying, like a pandemic or the risk of war, without descending into total individual panic.
That mechanism, that shared, humorous, digital restaging of the threat, that is the Elbedritsch hunt. It's the same software running on a new platform. The deep need for a simple answer, even a false one, is often stronger than our desire for complex truth. It's how we're wired. It's how we survive.
Something to mull over until our next deep dive.